Welcome. Today we are talking with Pete Ianace, Senior Vice President of Corporate Development at Vital Tech Innovations and President of ComCam International. Pete is here to get us caught up with the impact of the Internet of Things, big data, and artificial intelligence, and what they are doing with the future of healthcare. So welcome, Pete.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So excited to have you here. Oh my gosh, you are in leadership positions in two different companies at the same time. You obviously have a curious mind, as curiosity motivates us to do more than the average bear. So how did you get involved in this interesting mix of industries?
Well, so maybe I start from the beginning. I'll take 2 minutes on the
That's a great place to start.
So I've been doing this for 50 years.
Wow.
So 50 years, not 45, 50, maybe a little bit more than 50.
50.
50.
Okay.
And I started out as a data scientist before anybody knew what that was, with a little company called IBM in the late 60s.
A little company.
And I spent a bunch of time there and actually went into sales after about 7 years of being more of a techie. Mm-hmm. And then moved on to AT&T when they were being broken up.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was very involved in the divestiture of those operating companies. And spent a number of years as a vice president at AT&T, and then I came to Dallas in 1989. I lived in New York for 10 years before that.
Okay.
And moved down here with Northern Telecom,
Okay.
which was a big player down here and a big telecom company, and I was the worldwide VP of marketing. And then got promoted to be president of Pactel Meridian Systems, which moved me to California, and I was working for both Pactel and Nortel. It was sort of a cool job.
I guess so.
And I retired from corporate America in 1991.
Okay.
I was done. I've done what I wanted to do in big companies, and couldn't stay retired. And I started doing startups. And all my startups have been bleeding edge technology, communication, collaboration kind of products. And I'm also, about 7 years ago, started being a pretty big blogger about the Internet of Things, and things of that nature. And about 5 years ago, and I have a following of about 4,000 or 5,000 CEOs who follow what I say about what's happening in the industry. And actually, it was March 15th of 2015, this gentleman calls me up. And I used to talk about things that are possible because of sensors, smartphones, Internet of Things, big data. So I talk about possibilities and applications. And so this gentleman calls me up and says, I have a device that does exactly what you described. Can we meet for lunch?
Oh, wow.
That's how we got involved. Okay, so that was in March of 2015.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, he was looking for some seed money. And me and my two sons and a number of friends have had a lot of success with our startups.
Congratulations.
And so we ended up, instead of giving him $250K, we said, we'll take 10% of your company, we'll give you $2.5 million. We made that decision less than a week.
Oh, wow.
We said, we think there's something here. And that's what got me into healthcare, okay? And about a year and a half ago, we took the investment we had made in a company called Sensorgram, and we spun out 3 startups that we had put into that company that formed Vital Tech.
Okay.
And the other thing that's probably relevant to our audience is there's a management team here. 100% of us are investors. Together, we've built about 8 companies, and the senior management team of this company has built and sold 8 companies for over $4.9 billion.
Wow.
So this is not our first rodeo.
Yeah. You kind of know what you're doing.
And so
there.
while we're a startup, we're not managed like a startup.
Sure.
And to date, we've funded 100% of the company with our own money, and we now have a pretty leading edge platform that we can talk more about. And we're ready really to take over the world of remote healthcare.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty big world.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Matter of fact, the healthcare market is the single biggest market that ever existed in mankind. And you can actually have 1% of a vertical market and generate $1 billion in revenue. It's that big.
Wow.
Okay, so there's lots of room for lots of players.
Well, and it sounds like that you're one of the big players.
Well, we're one of the little players that could be a big player.
Okay, well, you can grow. You have that option.
Yes.
So what can you tell us about these smart wearable biosensors?
Okay, well, I think I'd like to take a different tack
Sure.
about that. And if you think about, and I'm trying to do this so that everybody understands what's possible.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so if you really think about, I'm going to go off subject a little bit, Amazon Prime. 10 years ago, there were still a lot of us who we were uncomfortable buying off the web.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Today, everybody Amazon Prime's their best friend. And Amazon Prime knows what you want better than you do. And the reason they do that is because the algorithms and the habits you have, they're able to decipher very quickly.
Right.
If you think about that, they're doing that through data.
It's almost
they're doing
spooky.
that through data science, artificial intelligence, that lets them tell you what you want before you want it. But there's a heck of a lot more data to be mined in healthcare than there ever is in retail. And so if you think about taking that type of capability and focusing on healthcare and mining the data that comes off our human bodies and all the disease data and all the different stuff that's already out there, and you start calibrating that stuff and rationalizing it, and then you add new vitals data of what's happening to our bodies real time, you can discover new things that haven't been discovered before about health and fitness and cures and things of that nature. So what's really allowed this to happen is the smartphone, which is the hub to the internet. The fact that internet bandwidth is now pretty ubiquitous and pretty cost effective. So everybody sort of has it. Not everybody, but most
A lot of people, yeah.
most of the world, okay?
Yeah.
So you got the smartphone that gets you on the highway. The highway is now pretty cost effective. And you have smart sensors that used to cost hundreds of dollars that now cost nickels.
Oh, wow.
So you now have the capability to miniaturize and have rings and watches that are supercomputers.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so I would tell you
Wow.
that just to really go back in history, in 1946, the first major computer was built called the ENIAC. It was built in the basement of the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and it took about 8 rooms to put it in, and they had vacuum tubes that were like as big as humans. And this is no exaggeration. When they turned it on for the first time, it took such a power surge, it dimmed the lights of Philadelphia.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay. By the way, that one computer that in 1946 dollars cost about $12 million is less powerful than an iWatch.
Wow.
Okay, so we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Okay, so the technology and all the capabilities to miniaturize and start doing things to determine what's going on with the human body is now practical.
And so when you were talking, I came up with a question. Does this also mean that this is going to help with research?
Oh, of course. I mean, there's lots of data out there already from things like Fitbit and the iWatch, and they're doing pretty simplistic vitals monitoring. They're really just doing heart rate, right? And you can find some things out, but they've discovered all kinds of new things already about AFib and things like that, and irregular heartbeats. So there's lots of new things to discover. I mean, I don't know if you saw last week, right? And this was because of some of that research. Forever we've been told we should take an aspirin so we don't have a heart attack. They just told us that's not true last
I
week,
heard
right?
that,
It's
yeah.
because of these kinds of things that those discoveries get made.
So you guys are really on not just the cutting edge, but the bleeding edge.
Yes, yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
But we're not the only player. There's lots of people trying to get into this space. I mean, you know, Apple's made a big entry with their iWatch, and they've added some ability to do some monitoring of vitals and things like that. They don't do it quite as well as we do, but at least they've stepped forward, and obviously they've got a lot of money to spend to do this.
Sure. And they've got the name
so
recognition.
I think you're going to see a lot of players do this. I think we're in a lead position because we started earlier and we probably had a bigger vision, but
well, and gosh, they've got you on the team.
That doesn't hurt. Yeah.
See? So, you know, with the life expectancy of people now, you know, we're all living a little bit longer now, and our medical expenses are rising,
Right.
you know, all the time. I just went to the doctor this week, and it's like, oh my God, really? But so how does your innovative look at personal data monitoring health offset that rising cost?
So the issue is what everybody's looking for, the reduced cost, is to reduce readmissions in hospitals and reduce trips to the emergency room.
Yeah.
So an emergency room visit is an average of $1,300
Per
per
visit?
person. Okay, and by the way, a lot of people use the emergency room as their doctor.
Right.
And a lot of people go to the emergency room for anxiety reasons. They're not really sick. Okay, so if they knew, because they're being monitored and they know what their own body's telling them, that they're not having a heart attack, that their blood pressure's not out of whack, they might not go.
Sure.
If you reduce that by 10%, it's billions of dollars in savings. Now you have lots of companies that take patients that get released from the hospital after they've been in the hospital, and they are assigned them to do home care for 90 days.
Right.
Okay? That whole process is paid for by Medicare, and they might, for example, pay $12,000 per each patient, and the job of the outsourced company and the nurses is to keep them from being readmitted, because it's so valuable not to be readmitted.
Sure.
That they're willing to pay $12,000 to make sure they're taking care of you. And so the average is that in that 3-month period, a nurse will come to your house 17 times.
For $12,000.
If they don't have to come 17 times because they can do it remotely,
Yeah.
it saves a lot of money. It also makes that company more money. Everybody wins, and the patient's more healthy.
Well, and the other thing is a lot of the patients don't like people coming to their house. They kind of like their privacy, and so being able to help them, monitor on their own, self-monitor, keeps them a little bit less anxious about those people coming in their houses too.
Well, and the other really serious issue from a cost perspective is 35% of our healthcare cost is due to people who are on care plans that don't follow them. So most of us don't do what our doctor tells us. We might for 3 days, but we don't get beyond that.
Right.
And here's the fact. The fact is that 80% of chronic illnesses, all your heart diseases, all your kidney disease, all of them, none of them have to happen. If you would just follow the doctor's orders, you would never get those chronic illnesses.
Wow.
But we do. Okay. As a matter of fact, by the time people are 65, 2/3 of them have 2 or more chronic illnesses. Some of them have 8. So you get people taking 8 and 9 medications a day. It's real easy to mess that up. It's real easy to get them out of order, right? So you need help. And so what our system really lets you do is let you know every day, real time, what your body's telling you. It reminds you that you didn't take your medication. It reminds you those things. But by the way, you might not be good at it. So we can also make sure that your loved one that's taking care of you also gets reminded.
Okay.
So now somebody's helping you be compliant. And if there's really an issue where one of your vitals is out of bounds, which means your heart rate's way out of line, or your blood pressure's way out of line, we alert your doctor. So now they can be proactive. So really another important statistic, we spend $3 trillion annually in America on healthcare. 97% gets spent on sick people, 3% on prevention. That's sort of ass backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're focused on improving that 3%. Now, by the way, so we spend twice as much as any other country in the world, and yet we're ranked only 36th in healthcare quality. There's something wrong with that.
Wow.
And it's not that hard to fix if you really start using some of these sensors and some of these capabilities that are now available.
So you've got the innovative technology, and then you are going to take this out and educate doctors on how to use it?
So our customers are big healthcare providers.
Okay.
So the people who sell, and so our initial market is senior care.
Okay.
So you've got the Apples and the Samsungs that have devices that do monitoring, but they're really focused on the 40-year-old. And by the way, they need help too, but the real market that needs help is the senior. Okay, and so we focus very much on 65 and older.
Okay.
Our products work great on a 40-year-old, but the market for 65 and older is dramatic. And by the way, to put that in perspective, every 7 seconds in the United States somebody turns 65. Every 7 seconds. And by the way, they're outpacing caregivers 4 to 1.
Wow.
So you can't solve the problem. It's going to get worse if you don't deal with remote care. There's not enough hospitals, there's not enough nurses, there's not enough anything. So you got to deal with it the way we're dealing with it.
This is a great way to give people an opportunity to have a lot more self-awareness.
Absolutely.
I love that, because, baby boomers, they're pretty independent.
So,
they like that.
So I'd like to tell a use case story to
Sure.
put that in perspective, because this use case destroys a number of myths.
Okay.
So there's a myth out there that people 85 and 90 don't like technology. They don't have smartphones and things like that. That's a myth, by the way.
It is a myth.
It is a fact, but it's a myth.
My dad has one.
So we did a trial in a nursing home with 50 patients. Average age 85 years 4 months, with the oldest being 98.
Okay.
High-end nursing home. And before we got there with our product, so it's Ritz-Carlton, $10,000 a month nursing home. So it's not like one of those places you go in and you get sad about. It's a nice place.
Okay,
but
good.
having said that, those 50 people would tell the executive director every day how terrible things were. And if you had lunch with them, they would talk about dying. Okay? And when we got there and we put our sensors on them and our system on them, within about 2 months, so when we started, 13 of those 50 people had smartphones.
13.
The others didn't want it.
Okay.
Okay. But all of a sudden, we're giving them data that they care about. And today, 38 of those people have smartphones. They bought smartphones because of our capability, because they became aware and they gamified what we gave them. So now instead of complaining, they're happy. At lunch, they don't talk about dying. They talk about, I took more steps than you, I burnt more calories than you, I got a better heart
I love
rate.
that.
And they're all really enjoying
That's
life
awesome.
again. Because and by the way, so they gamified it themselves.
Yeah.
It's really important to them who comes out number one. So they put up a chart, who took the most steps,
you
who did the most
kidding?
calories. Oh yeah,
Oh,
and by the way,
love
that's not
that.
the only use case like that, but that one taught us a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just your first one, right?
Right, that was our first really big one, yeah. So we've done a number since then, and we're getting the same kind of results. Now, we have another use case where we're doing a trial. It's actually not a trial, it's a paid-for program,
Okay.
but it's in trial mode, which means it hasn't launched nationally. It's been just utilized by some doctors, so concierge doctors.
Okay.
So they're the guys that people pay extra to get 7x24 treatment from.
Right.
And generally, those doctors actually want to take care of the patient. It's not like where you go on an office visit for 15 minutes and they're at their computer and they ask you a bunch of questions about what's wrong with you, and you hope you answer right. Okay.
I don't know.
So now all of a sudden you got people who pay extra to see doctors. They've already got insurance, but they want to get that doctor all the time. And those doctors want to take better care of you. So remote care really works for them because now they're getting proactive input all the time. So when you call them 7x24, they already know your vitals. They already know what's going on.
Yeah, they don't have to be there to check on you.
Right. And so they've got that. They've got a total system that's sort of giving them a one-up.
Yeah.
When you call them, they actually don't have to ask you those basic questions, and they can focus on what the call is really about.
So it's going to save time.
Right.
And it's also allowing the doctor to be way more prepared for each time that they see the patient.
So you can see how that could impact outcomes. And
Oh,
improve
yeah.
health and reduce costs. Now, the other thing in that trial, okay, that we've discovered is, so what we ship them is our system, a platform, but we also ship them a bunch of equipment.
Okay.
So based on what they're use casing, whether they have diabetes or COPD or whatever. So we ship them a scale,
Okay.
a blood pressure cuff,
Okay.
a pulse oximeter, which is for your heart rate and your SpO2.
Okay.
And so we're monitoring all that real time. Those devices are all wireless. So when they put them on, it just talks to our system and puts the data into their profile and their database and their patient record. So what we've found in that first 2 months, and I'll tell you why it's only 2 months, is that so far, and it's not a big audience, 50 people maybe, 100% compliance. What does that mean? That means 100% of those people checked all their vitals every day, didn't miss a day in the first 30 days.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Even like blown away the doctors.
Yeah,
Because
they're
we
like,
did not
oh,
expect
they're
that.
actually doing what we asked.
Right. And that makes a huge difference. If you can make people care about their health and take action, it's going to make a tremendous difference long term.
Well, and then that goes into that proactive
Right.
part that you were talking about earlier, the 3% versus the 97%. That's
So-
awesome.
So there's a big thing that happened in January of 2019.
Okay.
Medicare came up with a new program. And
Okay.
the problem with remote care before this is the stakeholders, the doctors and people like that, weren't getting paid. They weren't being compensated. So they didn't embrace it.
Oh,
They knew the
wow.
potential, but they didn't embrace
Sure.
it. So when we had our systems a year ago, people all loved it, but they said, who's going to pay for it? Okay. Well, now Medicare pays for it.
Go
So
Medicare.
Medicare pays for every Medicare patient $69 a month to the doctor if they just put our platform in the house.
Nice.
Okay, so
There's
maybe
some
our
incentive.
platform costs $400 or $500, but now it's break even after 4 months, and after that's pure margin. So now the doctor's making a lot of money. Our system's there that's going to give them the details they need, and then there's another $54 a month the doctor gets a charge if somebody on his medical staff looks at that data for 20 minutes per calendar month, and he gets the bill another $54. So now all of a sudden, without having to add any staff, they've got about $123 a new revenue stream per patient.
Wow.
Everybody's jumping on that.
I bet they are.
So essentially, effective January 1st, all the cool stuff we build is free. So I think that's going to help get the market started.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we have just touched the tip of the iceberg, and we're starting to run out of time a little bit. I know you do a little bit of work with the Department, the
Defense,
DoD.
yes.
Did you
So
want to talk a little bit about that
and
real
what
quick?
allows us to stay in the lead is that we have a couple of contracts with the Department of Defense where we jointly develop, and our target customer there is the warfighter. And the goal is to keep the warfighter as safe as possible
Yes.
when they get injured. And they get injured a lot worse. They get shot up, they lose limbs, and things of that nature.
Right.
And taking them all the way from point of injury to extended care, because after they leave the hospital, they need therapy and things like
Yes,
that. Our system
absolutely.
does all that. And so we have built a system that combined with what the DoD built for special ops, and we've integrated that. And so about in September of 2018, last year, the DoD, who had spent hundreds of millions of dollars in years building this platform for special ops, licensed to us with the full rights to modify and change, and we own the global rights.
Wow.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
Good for you.
But also that one of the things they ask us to do is, will you please give this product to first responders for the commercial market? So we're commercializing that. So that allows us to do not only long-term care, but point of injury, and deal with that and take it all the way through long-term care. So that's sort of exciting for us.
Very exciting. You guys are really helping to change the world. And so I probably should have introduced you as Pete Ianace, the game changer of America, or the world, really. Coffee with Claire, folks, thank you so much for coming and watching our show today. We appreciate your loyalty. The new viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us today. I'm with Pete Ianace, and I hope that you come back and give us updates on what's going on.
I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Coffee with Claire. To learn more about today's guests, visit their website or find them on Facebook. To learn more about me, Claire Billingsley, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at coffeewithclaire.tv. And to hear more episodes of Coffee with Claire, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast and social media platforms.